one by one. Which, do you guys have a preference?
Just like reading it and then just.
Just reading it the once, you feel like the drill is overkill?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go through our list. So, visible, I'm not sure why the shadow is like that.
Just the light on.
I thought I turned it on.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
because
on.
that's what the.
Because you get that
There
battery
you
next
go.
to it.
Just move center in.
Let me see if moving this over gets it away from, no, doesn't seem
Isn't it,
to.
is it the shadow from your bag that's like?
Oh, it might be this bag sitting there. Do it.
It's better.
Is that better? Okay. Bring that in, leave it in the office for a while. Okay, so, what do I?
Kyodai.
Which means.
Siblings.
Like,
Megane. Glasses.
Atarai.
Okay.
Right.
everybody, hi.
Sagatakai. All.
Type.
Thanks.
Shinsetsu. No. Kind.
And.
Benri now. Vinu.
Hi.
Shiru.
To know.
To get to know. Hi.
I do not know.
You do know?
To do, yes, to know.
Oh,
Okay.
I.
I mean, remember, shiru was to get to know, shiteimasu is I know.
That's to know now.
Standard is not, right?
Anyway,
To what?
Gangway.
Gain weight, right?
To be
To be heavy.
Hi.
Megane.
Megane or Takeru. Throwing
Wear
glasses.
glasses.
To wear glasses, right? Wear glasses.
Well, Yasutemasu. To lose weight. To be thin. To be thin.
Be thin, yes. Yasuteimasu is being, okay?
Suru.
Yes, to get married.
Nothing.
Nothing, yeah, as in, nani mo shirimasen, I don't know a thing.
Tori. One person.
One person.
Right?
Tori. Two people.
Study, right?
Kyokate. If you like.
If you like, yeah. Remember, yokatta desu was good, and the tada ending is actually a conjugation that means something kind of like if. So it's like saying, if it's okay with you, yokattara, if it's okay, we can do such and such, so if you like.
So it goes before the sentence?
Usually, yeah, yokattara, あのレストランに行きましょう. If it's okay with you, let's go to that restaurant, you know, as opposed to some other one. That kind of thing. よかったら寿司を食べたいです. You know, if it's okay with you, I want to eat sushi. You know, よかったらデパートに買いに行きましょう. If it's okay with you, let's go to the department store to buy whatever it is. Okay?
It's me. Not anything.
Not
Anything.
Not anything in particular, not particularly. So, betsu ni, I'm trying to think of a good example. Betsu ni omoshiroku nai desu, not particularly interesting. So, for example, if you're talking about some TV show or movie that you watched, あの映画は別に面白くないです. It wasn't particularly interesting. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. That kind of expression. Right, stomeru, which means to work. Okay.
Tosan. Father.
Alright, the first syllable of the word is embedded in the kanji, like in this case, au, then the small tsu in the te form also hangs off the end, which is normally the case with verbs, because if you're doing a te form verb, you kind of want to be able to see whether or not there's a small tsu that needs to be pronounced there, right? So,
It helps.
yeah.
That'd
So
be
normally they all
helpful.
show that. It would be awfully awkward if they didn't show that part, right? Okay. Kodomo means child, okay. Kyoko, which is the girl's name, Kyoko. Yeah.
Small.
Small.
Kaisha.
Kaisha, which means
Company.
company, okay.
Kasa.
Kazan means mother.
Koko. Koko.
Koko, which is
High school.
high school. Please don't pronounce it koko, that's here.
Airu.
Airu, to enter.
Tokyo.
Tokyo, Eastern capital, capital of Japan, right? Tokyo. Gakko, school, right?
Nihongo.
Oh, upside down.
The rest are upside down too.
Okay.
Return home.
Return home, up. Oh, a bunch of these are upside down, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Expensive.
Expensive.
Kokosei.
Kokosei is high school student, right?
It's
Sing.
Mochiro.
Of course. To live, right? Here.
To put on clothes by waist.
Yes, to wear clothes above the waist. Here. Glass.
Sogo.
Family.
Family, right?
Nagai.
Nagai.
Right?
Uta. Song.
Right?
Kabu.
Close the bows.
Put on a hat. Kaburu is to wear a hat. Boshi o kaburu. Boshi o kaburutemasu. Thank you for being a living example. Oh, upside down again. Right again, okay. This one, kaku.
Close
Put on
the waist.
below the waist, right? So, jeans o haitemasu. Wearing jeans. Kutsushita o haitemasu. Wearing socks. Kutsu o haitemasu. Wearing shoes. Right. To lose weight, height, mean,
Person counter.
person counter. So, for example, 3 people would be
Sunny.
sanni. 4 people,
Yoni.
yoni. Notice that the final n on the yon gets dropped, but the final n on the san stays. Go figure. San nin, but yo nin. Just the way it is, and then go nin, roku nin, chichi nin, hachi nin, kyu nin, ju nin, and on and on. Okay?
Washing machine. Answering that phone.
Right? Right?
Green.
Right?
Fast.
Right?
I.
Right? Car, right? Right? Hair. Yeah, in this chapter they're teaching hair. Bottle. Apartment. Right? Little sister, right? My older sister, right? But,
But.
right?
Mikai.
Right. Short, right?
Sagai. Wait. Sagai. Ikuri.
Right?
Tall as short in stature.
Short person, yes, as opposed to short ruler or something.
かわいい。
Cute, kawaii.
かっこいい。
かっこいい。
こう、
はい。
食堂、カフェテリア。
はい. Shokudo is literally dining hall. So it's like a school cafeteria, that kind of thing, shokudo. Yeah, the shoku is actually the taberu kanji, and then the do is one that means like a hall. Not a hallway, but like a large open room. So it's a large open room in which you get tabemono, shokudo. Right?
父が
Right.
コンビニ、コンビニストア、
はい
会社、
はい
女の人、
woman, はい
お姉さん、お久しぶり。
はい
お兄さん、おbrother。
女の
お
男の人、はい、男の人、man, はい、and
弟、little brother。
little brother, はい。いいですか？And move on to some other stuff. So, okay, so part of Volt, we're talking about using the stem, just like we did in our example sentences on the board. Okay, so let's have Hori-san read the example for us, and then we'll just go around like usual.
スーさんは京都に歌舞伎を見に
Yeah,
行
me,
きます。
ikimasu. Hi, you had it right. And notice the to in Kyoto, people were asking what that kanji would be the other day. Notice that it's not the same one as the to in Tokyo. You know, a lot of people, when they first realize the similarity between the two, they just assume that Tokyo and Kyoto must be the same two kanji reversed, but they're not. Okay, じゃあ、シアラさん1番。
Sorry, what is it?
図書館 So you're going to the library for the purpose of borrowing the book, right? Or borrowing a book, or borrowing some books. That part's ambiguous in Japanese. Do you understand how to apply the pattern from this? So, Susan wa, then place ni, object o, verb stem ni ikimasu. Right? So the place in this case is toshokan, the object is hon, and the verb that applies to the object is kariru, karimasu. Kari, kari ni ikimasu. There you go. Kari ni ikimasu. Does that make sense? So she's not just going and she's not just borrowing. She's going for the purpose of borrowing. Okay, so does that make sense to everybody? So she's going to the library in order to borrow a book. Right? That's what this structure does. Okay, does everybody see how that works? じゃあ、タチアナさん、2番。
食堂に昼ご飯を食べに行きます。
はい、いいですね。じゃあ、3番、カナンさん。
郵便局に切手を買いに行きます。
はい、買いに行きます。
とに行きます。
Toni?
はい
Look at it again. Toru, what does it change to for the mas form? Torimasu, right?
はい、です。
So it would be,
取りに行きます。
there you go. Tori ni ikimasu. Shashin o tori ni ikimasu. Koen ni shashin o tori ni ikimasu. So maybe she's into photography as a hobby or something, so she's going to the park specifically for the purpose of taking photos, right? Maybe she's taking a photography class or some such. Yeah, Andrea-san?
ゆうさんは友達の家に勉強しに来ます。
はい、勉強しに行きます。いいですね。She's going to their house for the purpose of studying, right? Because you could go to your friend's house for lots of different reasons, right? And you could go study lots of different places. So this allows you to state where you're going and the reason you're going there all in one sentence. Yeah. San?
町に遊ぶに行きます。
What's the stem? Asobu is the dictionary form.
So it's just does the boo drop off?
Bu changes to something. What's it change to if you're doing mas form?
Asobimasu.
Right, asobimasu. So drop the mas, and what's left is
Asobi.
hai.
So asobi ni ikimasu.
Hai, that's how stem works. Okay? It helps to do some practical application, doesn't it? じゃあ次。
スーさんはデパートに靴を買いに行きます。
はい、靴を買いに行きます。She's going to the department store in order to buy shoes. That's her purpose, right? She's not just going to the department store to window shop, she's actually going to buy shoes. Make sense? じゃあ、ひなさん。
交互に英語を教え
Okay, think about what's the mas form for this one? Oshiebimas or oshiemas? Which one is correct? Which one? Is oshieru a ru verb or a new verb? Ru verb, right? So oshiemas would be the mas form, so what's the stem?
教え
はい。
に行きます。
はい、教えに行きます。英語を教えに行きます。So she's going to the high school for the purpose of teaching the kids English, right? はい、じゃあ9番どうぞ。
喫茶店にコーヒーを飲みに行きます。
はい、喫茶店にコーヒーを飲みに行きます。Go to the coffee shop in order to drink coffee, right? Okay. Any questions about how that works? Do you understand the difference now between if it's a stem for an irregular or a ru verb or an u verb, what you have to do to get your stem? So the easiest way to do it is just think about the mas form conjugation and then take the mas off. That's the easiest way to get to stem. Okay, and hopefully if you guys have your stem and your dictionary form and mas form memorized as a pair, that's the easiest way to make sure you know the right way for it to conjugate. For most people, it's easier to just remember things like 教える、教えます、教えて、食べる、食べます、食べて、行く、行きます、行って。It's, for most people, it's easier to just memorize those three as a sort of set rather than have to think through applying the rule that applies. Because, if you have to think through the rule, think about it. You have to think, okay, here's the dictionary form, now what kind of verb is it? Okay, it's an u verb. Okay, now which kind of u verb is it? Which rule do I apply here for making the stem, or making the te form, making the mas form? It gets really complicated, right? So it's kind of like with, when you were in elementary school and you had to memorize your times tables. yes, it's a good idea to get out the Legos or whatever and understand the concept of why 10 times 10 is 100, right? If you never do that, the math concepts won't ever make sense. But on the other hand, if you have to figure it out by counting Legos every single time, it's going to take you forever to do a simple math problem, right? So at some point, you just sort of bite the bullet and say, okay, let me memorize my multiplication tables, right? So it's kind of the same thing here. It's good to know the rules and the reasoning behind how you get from dictionary form to Moss form to TED form to STEM and so forth, right? But you probably don't want to have to think through 5 different sets of rules to get to the word you want when you're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, right? By the time you figure out what it is you wanted to say, they're going to have given up on you and walked away, right? So it's a good idea to go ahead and memorize what I like to call the trifecta. Dictionary form, Moss form, TED form. If you know those 3, those are like the tripod that supports all of your other verb conjugations in Japanese, because everything else works off of some variant of those, right? STEM comes off of the Moss form. So if you know what the Moss form is, it's easy to get to STEM. Some of the short form casual stuff that we're going to be learning in the next couple of chapters work off of some of those other forms. They might come off of the dictionary form, or they might come off of the TED form. In a few cases, they come off from a different place. They have a different rule that applies. So you might have to add one more thing that you sort of memorize. But for the most part, 90% of the time, if you need a verb, if you know those 3 things about that verb, you can get to the piece that you need for your current sentence. Does that make sense? So if you've got your TED form, your dictionary form, and your Moss form memorized as a set, and you can just reel them off in your head quickly. Iku, ikimasu, itte. Kiku, kikimasu, kiite. Kuru, kimasu, kite. Suru, shimasu, shite. Hanasu, hanashimasu, hanashite. If you can do them quick like that, then it's just like with the times tables. You're confronted with a real life math situation, and you don't have to think about, wait a minute, what was 8 times 6? You just know it, and you move on, right? Make sense? Okay, so let's try part B. Dylan-san? So you get to make up your own reason for going to that thing, that place.
コンビニに飲み物を買いに行きます。
Hi, that works. Yeah, when I lived in Japan, コンビニにおにぎりを買いに行きました. Because that's one of the things you can get in like the typical Japanese 7-Eleven and all. You know how they always have like a little sandwich area that's refrigerated? Well, in Japanese 7-Elevens, you can always get onigiri. That's one of the things they have in among the sandwiches. They've got, you know, your ham sandwich, your cheese sandwich, your blah 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 sandwich, and then you've got onigiri of 5 or 6 or 8 different types. And if you get there early enough in the morning, they still have stock of all of those, so you can choose the one you really like. If you get there in the middle of the day, they might be out of half of them. はい、じゃあ2番。
東京にたくさん食べ物を食べに行きました。
はい、okay. You went to Tokyo to eat lots of food. Hope it was yummy. はい、じゃあ3番。
図書館に漫画を借りに行きます。
はい、いいですね。Go to the 図書館 to borrow manga. Love it. じゃあ
Alright. So if I wanted to say just to sleep, it would be nemas. So
Yeah.
it would just be ne.
Yeah.
So it would be ne ni kaerimasu.
はい、寝に帰ります。Yeah. It sounds awkward, it sounds weird, like, wait a minute, that can't possibly be enough. but it is. That works. ね、2回やります。はい。5番。
大学にゲームアートを勉強します。勉強し、行きに帰ります。
Okay, back up a little. Okay, so 大学に you're coming for the purpose of studying, right? So 大学に勉強 what's the stem form for するしますしに
しに行きます。
well, this verb しに
Oh, 買いました。
really?
Or 買います。
Really?
Wait, key.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If I could read. 来ます。
来ました You need my glasses?
Not great.
So 大学に勉強しに来ました right? 勉強しに来ました And if you wanted to say what you came to study, you could put that in too. So if you wanted to say, for example, 大学に日本語を勉強しに来ました If you only came for this class today, then you could say it that way. If you came for other classes, then you would probably leave that part out. Make sense? Okay. Okay, so let's try the next activity. So Sierra-san and Tatiana-san, I want you guys to read the example for us.
トムさんは友達のお家に何をしに来ますか？遊びに行きます。
Hi. Okay, so do you understand what we're doing here? What happened with this question?
First person was asking why Tom went to his friend's house, and the
Right.
second person is answering why.
Right. And did you notice that in most of the question word questions we've had up until now, the only thing that got replaced in the answer was the question word got replaced with a noun that answered that question, right? But here, nani o shi ni ikimasu ka? What's he going to do there? Right? So the verb that comes before the ni ikimasu, the stem, is what's going to get replaced, right? If that stem takes an object, that object will go in where the nani was. If that verb does not take an object, like asobu, then there's just no object in the answer. You see that? Okay, so in the case of our example, they didn't say that he's going there to play video games or to play sports or something like that. He's just going to have a good time, to have fun, right? So asobi ni ikimasu. Make sense? If you wanted to say he was going there to play video games, it would be something like terebi gemu o shi ni ikimasu. Right? Because you actually use the verb suru with games and sports. Okay, so the verb asobu doesn't normally take an object, so there just wasn't one in the answer. じゃあ、Tatiana-san gets to ask Dylan-san 一番。
ケンさんは図書館に何をしに行きますか？
はい。
本を借りに行きます。
はい、そうですね。じゃあ2番、どうぞ。
ポールさんは喫茶店に何をしに行きますか？
はい。
マリナさんは、デパートに何をしに行きますか？
カバンを買いに行きます。
Does yours say to buy a bag? Mine says to buy a souvenir.
Oh, I don't know, it looked like a bag.
Yeah, could be what it was
Okay.
under the box.
Oh,
It's hard to tell what it's supposed to be, but it says buy a
Oh.
souvenir. So what's souvenir? Who remembers?
Omiyage.
Hi, omiyage.
so omiyage.
Omiyage.
Oh, omiyageを買いに行きます。
はい、そうですね。お土産を買いに行きます。じゃあ4番どうぞ。
メアリさんはうちに何をしに行きますか？
Ah, since it's her uchi, instead of しに行きます, what should we change it to? Yeah, しに帰りますか ?Okay. メアリさんはうちに何をしに帰りますか？
食べ物を食べに帰ります。
帰ります。はい。And you could put 食べ物 there, that works. Or if you decide you want to pin it to a particular time of day, you could change that out for 昼ご飯を食べに帰ります or 晩ご飯を食べに帰ります. It's hard to tell from what they're showing you there. That could be any meal in Japan because there's rice and soup and some random thing on a dish. So it's, you know, in Japan that could be any meal because traditional Japanese breakfast is rice and miso soup and something on a dish, very often fish. Yeah, my brother who was 14, 15 at the time was totally horrified by the fact that a small whole fish, complete with head and tail, might be on your breakfast plate.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as a 14-year-old, he just
Yeah.
was horrified by the concept. You know, pretty typical traditional Japanese breakfast, though. じゃあ、どうぞ。
よこさんはお寺
はい。
Okay, お寺に何をしに行きますか？
写真を撮りに行きます。
はい、そうですね。So she's going to the temple for the purpose of taking photos. She's not going there to pray, she's going there to take photos. Right? Makes sense, right? When you're a tourist, that's one of the things you do. はい。いいですか? Okay. So let's try, so the next one sort of builds on that. Oh, the next one is actually starting to get into counting words. Okay, so does let's do a quick review of how we do counting with numbers already, because the pattern holds even though we have to change a lot of the words. So who remembers how to say that you're going to buy 5 stamps or something like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so gomai is part of it, but that's not the whole thing, right?
Kite o gomai.
Hi. So, kitte o gomai kaimasu, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Kaimasu. Now, just for fun, let's see if we can work in going to the post office for the purpose of buying 5 stamps.
郵便局に、
郵便局, right? 郵便局に切手を5枚買いに行きます。Yay! So now you can apply that structure structure that we just worked on, kainikimasu, to the structure that we had from before of counting numbers of things. So if you're going to a particular place specifically to buy a certain number of an item, or to borrow a certain number of an item, right, or return a certain number of an item, you've got the structure for that now, right? Okay, now highlighting this particular part. So kitte is what? What part of speech have we got there?
Direct object.
It's a noun and it's the direct object, right? Kitte o, and then what have we got here? The number. And then what's this thing? The counter, the measure word is one of the ways they refer to that, and that's got a nice easy abbreviation, measure word. Okay, so we've got the direct object, o, number, measure word. Now if you look at the structure here, what have we got? Onna no hito ga nani ni imasu ka, right? So onna no hito would be the noun, right?
How much does the order matter, really?
Well, let's do one thing at a time. So onna no hito ga, okay, and then, sorry, nan, min, imasu ka. Okay, that's the question, right? So note the similarities and the differences. Over here, we're using the verb kaimasu, right? Therefore, that takes a direct object, right? Right? When you've got a noun that you're buying, that takes a direct object marker, o, right? When you've got people existing, what's the applicable particle? When people exist.
Ga.
Ga imasu, right? Hito ga imasu. See that? So this makes sense if you think about it, right? If you leave out the gomai from this sentence, kitte o kai ni ikimasu, or kitte o kaimasu, right? That's a simple sentence that you guys are comfortable with, right? So where are you inserting the number plus measure word? Between the object marker and the verb, right? So, onna no hito ga imasu, a woman exists. That's a structure you're already comfortable with, right? Where are you inserting the number and measure word, or in this case, the question and measure word combination? Same spot, okay, between the object marker, or in this case, the ga, which is sort of like an object marker, but not exactly. But it's between the particle and the applicable verb, right? So in terms of word order, they're getting inserted in the same spot. Does that help? A little bit? I know it's a little bit weird for us, because if we wanted to ask how many women are in the room, we would say there are 3 women. Right? We would put the number over here and skip the measure word entirely, right? Japanese doesn't do it that way. So this is just one more example, one of the many, where Japanese grammar differs greatly from English grammar, right? But, as somebody in my level 1 class noted the other day, we're not conjugating for type of pronoun, right? Anybody taken Spanish?
Yeah, we
6 different verb conjugations just to get to I eat versus he eats versus they eat versus we eat versus,
I hated that.
yeah, right? So at least we don't have to deal with that. right? You know,
Yeah, no.
that was worse to me than this mess. So let's practice applying this, okay? So, 女の人が何人いますか? And then when you're answering, you can pull down all of this, in which case all you have to replace is the none gets replaced with a number. So if we wanted to count, 1人、2人、3人、4人, right? So in this class we could say 4人います. Okay, 女の人が4人います. Right? See how that worked? Okay. Okay, so let's read the example. Whose turn was it? どうぞ.
この部屋に女の人が何人いますか? 2人います.
2人います. So if there were only two, you could say 2人います.
Okay.
Right? And if you wanted to borrow from like an earlier chapter when we used to keep the whole sentence, remember when we used to do that at the beginning and because everybody was scared to drop anything because they didn't know what was okay to drop? You can say この部屋に女の人が2人います or 4人います or whatever number you want います. Okay? Make sense? Okay. じゃあ、シエラさん read the 1番 for us.
この部屋に男の人が何人いますか?
はい。タテヤマさん. Yeah.
4人います。
はい、4人います. That works. はい、じゃあ2番どうぞ. You get to fill in the blank with whatever nationality you choose.
この I don't know why it's like this, but この部屋に韓国人が何人いますか? That's all one.
Trick question.
0.
はい. So in that case, you could say 韓国人がいません.
いません.
Okay, but let's just, for the sake of argument, pretend that there was one Korean person in here. How would you answer in that case?
1人います.
はい、1人います. Okay, so you see how the application of 1人、2人、3人、4人 works? じゃあ、3番お願いします.
Okay. この部屋に髪が長い人が何人いますか?
ああ。
長い.
Would it be Yori or Yori?
4人.
4人. Okay.
Yeah.
4人います.
はい、4人います. So, yeah, let's just review real quick. So the readings on 1人 and 2人 are irregular. From 3人 onwards, it's pretty regular except that 4 shortens to yo. So if you're doing phonetics on these 1人 like that, 2人 is like that, but then from then on you get to 3人 4人 5人 and then there's no more weirdness from then on, that it stays consistent from there on. I believe 11人 12人 13人 14人. I think the yo instead of yon continues even with the higher numbers ending in 4, but, you know, like 11 and 12, 21, 22 do not revert back to this. They stay with nijuninin, and so on and so forth. Okay, so your first 2 are the only truly irregular ones, and then yonin, you know, anything ending in a 4, it just does yo instead of yon, which is one of those shifts that is just really, really, really common with 4s in Japanese. Okay, does that help? Okay, so we figured yoninimasu, ne? Okay, so the last question there.
この部屋に元気な人が何人いますか？
ああ、そうですね。Okay, so how would you pronounce it? Hachi ni imasu. That works. Yeah, depending on your definition of genki, right? Because that's sort of a judgment thing, you know. Or, you know, genki as in nobody's sick, it applies to everybody. Genki as in super high energy, not really this class. Right? Maybe it's too early in the morning for that.
It is.
You know, so it depends on how you want to define genki. Right?
So basically that question was just asking how many people in this room are like healthy?
It can interpret as either healthy or energetic, and so that's why I say it's a judgment call, whether you want to just label everyone genki because nobody's like coughing a lung up, or do you want to say genki is only people who are a certain energy level, you know? Because everybody in this group is sort of sedate. So some people might not call you guys genki, you know.
And don't they wear those masks if they're sick?
Yeah.
So then you could tell.
You'd be able, yeah, if you're using it that way, you could
Maybe.
measure sort of. But also, like, you could say that, for example, my daughter who can't sit still for 3 seconds in a row is totemo genki. Whereas her brother is actually a little calmer, he can actually sit down for a few minutes.
Is there a different word that we could use for to use of healthy or energetic?
Okay, kenkoteki is literally just healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
So, but that can apply not only to how a person is feeling, but it can also apply to like your choice of food.
Okay.
You know, kenkoteki na tabemono. You know, choosing to eat your greens instead of your candy. You know.
So you can interject that in to specify that. You
Right,
want to
yeah.
correct it.
Yeah, and then in terms of like describing somebody as very high energy versus low energy, otonashi is an adjective that describes somebody who's more serious and sedate. Yeah, which it's interesting that otonashi is related to the term otona, which means adult. So by Japanese standards, somebody who's serious and sedate, majime is also serious, but otonashi is like mature because they're serious and they're sedate and they're calmly doing their work or whatever, as opposed to bouncing off the walls. So it's an interesting cultural commentary that genki is something that's often associated with being young, but also sometimes has a connotation of being maybe a little bit childish, not, yeah, urusai is like noisy, but all of these adjectives rather, the borders of what they define are not necessarily exact matches with English words. So for example, urusai is literally translated usually as noisy, but it also has the implication of annoying. Like, you know, somebody who's being urusai is not just being loud, they're being loud in an annoying way that you wish they would quit.
Yeah, I like seeing
Right?
that word used as in telling people to be quiet or something.
Right.
Yeah, because they always translate to like shut up. Like
Yeah.
In anime.
Yeah, because it literally is describing that you're being annoyingly noisy, as opposed to like oki koe de. Oki koe is a big voice, so if you want to be more objective about describing that somebody is speaking loudly, you can use oki koe de hanashitemasu. They're speaking with a loud voice, which depending on the circumstances could be good or bad, right? But if you're describing them as urusai, that's generally bad.
Could you use oki korete for singing loudly? Or
Yeah.
that'd be different. Okay.
Yeah, oki koe de utatte imasu. Yeah, they're singing loudly. And you can use like oki koe de yonde kudasai. Please speak up when you read aloud. You know, so like if I'm having a class take turns like speaking like we've just been doing, and somebody's really whispering, you can barely hear them. I might say, oki koe de itte kudasai, please say it loudly, so that the rest of the class can learn from and appreciate what you're saying. And I can tell whether or not you said it right, you know? You know, because especially in Japan, you get people who are so like, the custom of being quiet and sedate is so ingrained, and then there are people who are shy who are even quieter than that. And then it's like, okay, if they're sitting where Andrea is, I can't hear them, you know, because they're just too quiet, right?
Or if you're talking in a group, in a crowded area, and then you can't
Mhm.
hear each other.
Right, yeah. So, and then of course if you're in the Toshokan, you can do the opposite. Chisai koe de itte kudasai. So please speak in a little voice, which is quietly, yeah. Because shizuka ni shite kudasai means be quiet, which is more like be silent, you know. Okay, so how are we doing on time? I hate not having a working clock in this.
12.
Okay, we still got a few minutes, okay. So let's look at the matome no renshu. And everybody in the other class was happy with the decision we made on Tuesday, that we'll postpone the test till next week.
Oh, I can't be here next Tuesday because I have ACT. Like I just got the schedule.
Oh,
Well, we're doing it Thursday.
yeah, we're doing the chapter test on Thursday, aren't we? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually works out better for you because the test was scheduled to be on Tuesday, now we've moved it to Thursday. Okay? So, no excuse, you don't get to miss the test.
You won't be here for review.
Okay, so you'll miss out on one review, but we're at the end of the chapter now, so you'll be okay. Okay, so let's look at Matome no Renshu. So, let's see, whose turn was it? Shiona-san, was it? Oh, it was Alex, sorry, okay.
Alright, so, どこに住んでいますか?
Okay, you wanna let, Corey answer? どこに住んでいますか? How would you answer that?
I completely forgot what sen was.
Sunday.
Sunde.
住んでいます is living. So,
Oh.
どこに住んでいますか is where do you live?
Oh,
Melbourne.
Melbourne or imasu.
Melbourneに
Oh, Melbourne ni
住んでいます。
sunde.
はい、メルボルンに住んでいます。So remember that parallel structure thing still holds.
Yeah.
Okay, 2番どうぞ。
結婚していますか?
I don't know.
Do you know what 結婚する is? Okay, If you knew, you'd be laughing at the question.
Okay.
A little young for that, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, is it, what? Oh,
You're married, right.
well, in some countries I'm not.
Well, scary thought.
I'm 21. Whatever.
Yeah. Wow, you're older than I thought, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last year I was 20 and I didn't say anything.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was turning 20. So how do I answer this? Did I just
So,
say no?
結婚していますか would, yeah, いいえ、
Yeah.
結婚していません would be the negative.
結婚しています。
はい、結婚していません。はい。
Okay.
いいですね。じゃあ3番。
There's a slash.
Okay, so that means you can use either one of those two nouns at the front. So either jitensha or kuruma.
Okay. Jitensha o mottemasu ka?
Just to clarify, she's asking to borrow my bike?
No, she's asking if you own a bike. Motteimasu is to have, to own. It's literally to hold or carry.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But-
Why would she ask if I'm carrying a bike?
Right, but in the context of items that are a little bit large to be carrying around, it usually just means, do you own one?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could probably manage to carry your bike,
Had
but,
to carry
Who
it up
wants
a
to?
hill to ride.
yeah, who wants to? Yeah.
Exercise. No.
Ie, jitensha o motteimasen.
はい、持っていません。That works. Okay. じゃあ、次。
日本の歌、okay. 日本の歌を知っていますか？
はい、知っています。
はい、いいですね。Better practice that because when you go to Japan, they're going to expect you to sing karaoke.
Pick an anime theme song.
There you go.
See the Roman maybe. サークルに入っていますか？
いや、入っていません。
はい、いい
So
で
is this
す
just
ね。
an idiom to enter the club activity is
It-
means
It means to be part of a club. It means, yeah, you're not just entering the club activity, you're entering the club, you're joining the club. So, サークルに入っています doesn't just mean that you're entering a circle, it means that you are actually a member of a club. So for example, if we had still had a Japanese club on this campus, it's sort of died out. But if we still had it, you could say, 日本語のサークルに入っています. Things like that. はい、どうぞ。
日本語の先生は今日何を着ていますか？着ていますか？
What does this ask?
It's asking, what am I wearing on top or what am I wearing on bottom?
Okay, so, スカーフを着ています。
Actually, this would be スカーフをしています because it's an accessory.
Okay.
So yeah, you use the verb suru for accessories like スカーフとピアス, and you use like you could say シャツを着ています for shirt, wearing a shirt, and パンツを履いています or ズボンを履いています.
Okay. So, シャツを着ています。靴を履いています。
はい, there you go.
兄弟がいますか？何人いますか？
はい、います。二人います。
二人います。
います。
はい。二人います。はい. Okay, and sometimes when somebody asks about kyodai, a common response would be to enumerate how many of what kind of sibling.
Oh,
So like you could say,
双子、 いますと、お姉さん。
はい。So お姉さんが一人います。姉が一人います。Right? And then you could say 私は双子です。I'm a twin. And so 双子の弟がいます。
うん
Something like that. Yeah. So, いいですね。It's good to learn how to say that stuff before you get to Japan,
Yeah.
so that when people ask you these questions, you can actually give them accurate information.
Yeah.
そう
お父さん or お母さんはどこに勤めていますか？
勤めていますか？
勤めていますか？
はい、そう。お父さんはどこに勤めていますか？ or お母さんはどこに勤めていますか？
勤
勤めていません。
いません。
Okay, they're both retired?
My dad's looking for a job.
Oh, okay, got laid off. Okay.
Uh,
So you could say 今勤めていません.
Okay.
Not working right now. Presumably he's gonna get a job again.
Yeah, interview, last interview, like next week. So,
Oh,
I think that's one where, talking about how much he's getting paid and stuff, so.
okay, so 今勤めていません. Okay, and then it's also very common, just culturally speaking, it's very common in Japan for people to just say the name of the company or the kind of company where they're working and not tell you whether they're the janitor or the CEO. And they let their meishi speak for them on that point, because the meishi has information about company and title and their position within the company. But Japanese people tend to think of it as bragging to state that, oh yeah, I'm district manager of such and such.
It can sound braggy in English too.
Yeah,
We just care less.
right, yeah, yeah, we're
We're just
less-
saying that to be nice, we're just
I'm
asking to be
looking- I'm
nice.
looking,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're less afraid of bragging in this culture. But Japanese people will usually just tell you, you know, like Sony ni tsutomete-masu, I work for Sony, you know, and they'll leave it to, you know, either if you're exchanging meishi, you'll figure out what their position is from that. And if you're not exchanging meishi, it might just be because they actually are like in a janitorial or some kind of, you know, more menial position, and it's not something they necessarily want to brag about. So by not prying, you're leaving them their privacy and not, you know, embarrassing them that, oh yeah, you've got some kind of PhD or whatever, and I'm just a lowly menial worker, you know.
I heard you say, I work for a multi-billion dollar corporation, you work at McDonald's. It's like-
Yeah. Yeah, right, yeah. Americans tend to go the other direction and try to make it sound better than it is.
Well, that's just
Japanese
the way
people
you
like
can
to
do that.
downplay it.
It's funny.
So,
It's just
anyway,
something I saw all of
those
a
all.
sudden.
おじさんはどこに住んでいますか？
あ、おじいさんとおばあさん、わかりますか? Who remembers what those terms are?
Grandmother.
Ah.
Yes, おじいさん is
Grandmother.
grandfather, yes, and おばあさん is grandmother. So where do they live?
Which one's grandfather again?
おじいさん.
Ji-san, Ohio. Or, I could just say Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio works. Ohio ni sundeimasu. Hi, Ohio ni sundeimasu. That works. Okay, yep. So I think we're out of time,
Wait, I
so
just have
we'll.
a quick question.
Hi.
It was on page 179. The
is combining the two adjectives. I wasn't sure how you change like the non-adjectives, because they gave genki and nigiyaka. Like how you
Okay, genki de nigiyaka desu.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, all the na adjectives, you drop the na and add de, and that's how you make the te form of those. And the e adjectives, you drop the e and add ku te.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we will do one more review on Tuesday and have the OPI and chapter test on Thursday.
I do have a question though, it's not really relevant to today's lesson, but like when I listen to like speech, casual speech, I hear a lot of ending in kedo.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like something
Kedo
we-
is like ba, it's like however,
Ah.
and Japanese people use it a lot because
Yeah, I know, I hear
there's
it a
like,
lot.
there's a lot of, that's one way to sort of soften whatever you said. I like such and such, but, you know, I want to do X, Y, Z, but, you know, it leaves an opening
Yeah.
for the other person to disagree with you because you're not sounding like you're so adamant
Yeah.
about whatever it is you just said.
Oh, yeah, so I guess that's a very kind of Japanese thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that,
very
that
cool.
sort of open-endedness, that,
Yeah.
that feeling of letting people know that, you know, you're making this statement, but you're open to other possibilities. That is very Japanese, and it's something that I sometimes wish American politicians could learn.
Will they cover that in this book, or is it not in this?
I don't think it comes up, but it's a really good thing to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know that it comes up anytime soon, but, yeah, maybe if you help me remember, when we get into lesson 8, we can just mention it.
Yeah, because I know it's something I hear a lot, and I was kind of like looking up an answer to it, on like what it means and why it's used and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. And, yeah, that's the kind of thing that's good to bring up in class,
Yeah.
because if you're noticing it, probably you're not the only one.